Joining us now, trying to pull the upset in House District 94, a Democrat, Shelly Simonds, running a spirited campaign against Republican incumbent David Yancey. Hey, Shelly, good to have you with us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me back on your show.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Tell us about your race. What's happening?
Oh, it's been great. We're knocking on a lot of doors. I think I'm over 5,000 doors right now, and we hear about a lot of great issues from voters. Issues for seniors keep coming up. People telling me that pharmaceutical costs are way too high. I notice there are a lot of caregivers out there who are, having to quit jobs to care for elderly at home. I really think we need to do something about that. And we had a really good debate earlier in the week, and I assumed that there wouldn't be anybody there, but it was standing room only. They could not fit people in the room. So I think there's a lot of interest in this election out there.
So what are the biggest policy differences, Shelly, between yourself, the Democratic challenger, and look, we've got your campaign in an off-year election as an underdog, no doubt. What are the major policy differences now? You got 2 weeks remaining between yourself and incumbent Republican David Yancey.
Well, I think the major policy differences come because I'm an outsider. So as an outsider, I'm really trying to connect with what the needs of the community are. And I've seen, of course, through my daughters and their schools that we've had terrible cuts to education, $22 million. And we need somebody who's really going to stand up and make us think about that, especially because we want to diversify our economy in Virginia, and that's going to mean having a workforce that's really ready for high-tech jobs. So that's one policy area. I also think, issues for seniors have really fallen off the radar at the state level. And I don't know why, because we've got a silver tsunami coming down with so many seniors needing care in their homes. And I think we could save a lot of money if we can shift the burden away from nursing home care to helping seniors stay in their home with more services for them. And, my opponent hasn't taken a stand on seniors' issues. And in fact, we had a Community Services Board review meeting of mental health policies at the state level, and he didn't even show up to hear about mental health in the state of Virginia. So that's another area where he really hasn't done enough.
Okay, so I want to start, Shelly, with what you just said. You described yourself as an outsider, but you're an elected official, right? You're a school board member. So once you become an elected official, kind of you're part of the whole political game. How do you say you're an outsider?
Well, right now I feel very connected to my community as a school board member. I spend my days visiting different schools and talking to parents, and so I'm really connected at the local level. But you're right. I mean, when I go up to Richmond, it's going to be a whole nother ball game and a whole different kind of, I know there's a lot of dissension and division up there, and the real challenge is going to be how do we find issues where Republicans and Democrats and everybody can agree. They better be things that are common sense and middle-of-the-road issues. I think we should be able to get things done on education, and we should be able to get things done on workforce development. I mean, there's really no excuse for issues where we already have some pretty broad-based agreement, and I'll try to focus on those issues and get something done.
So when you talk about getting seniors care in the home, like the Helping Angels or other companies out there that provide that, are you talking about the government paying for that?
Well, there are Medicaid waivers that adults with mental illness and dementia really could use. I'm in favor of expanding the Medicaid waivers to people with early onset Alzheimer's. I have a friend whose husband was only 52, and she had to decide between staying home to care for him and keeping her job. So I think for someone like her, having a specialized Medicaid waiver to allow her to go back and work, and then, payroll, that's what we need for our revenue for the state of Virginia. We need people like her who are working, paying their taxes, not dropping out of the workforce to care for a loved one. So, that's an area where I definitely think the state government should expand Medicaid waivers.
Shelly, I want to get to Terry McAuliffe's executive orders on guns. Executive order number 50 seemed a little odd that the governor was closing the campaign on restriction, on attempting to find, I guess in his mind, common sense gun restrictions for Virginians of all places. How do you think that's going to play?
Well, right now there's a lot more talk about sensible gun solutions to gun violence. I hear it when I knock on doors. I really don't think there's any way we're going to prevent all gun violence. I think that that's a fantasy, and what we really need to do is think about how we can reduce the number of deaths. And really, to me, that means looking at cases of domestic abuse where abusers really shouldn't have access to these weapons. In the case of a marriage falling apart, things like that. I think we could probably reduce the number of gun deaths.
Now, Shelly, in an email that went out, I think on Monday, yesterday, you accused David Yancey, the incumbent, of voting to allow guns in Virginia, in the Virginia school system. Can you elaborate on that?
It was House Bill 786, and it would have allowed teachers and other school employees to have firearms and weapons on school grounds without penalty. And I'm really uncomfortable with this as a school board member because we spend a lot of time trying to convince our students not to bring guns into our schools and not to keep them in their cars. I'm on the disciplinary review committee, and we expel students quite often when they bring look-alike weapons into our school buildings, and I think it just sends a bad message to these students. They look up to teachers. Teachers are their role models, and I don't think anybody should have guns on school grounds.
Hey, Shelly, is there an argument that says that if you look at some of these school massacres that had one of the teachers had a firearm, a permit for a concealed weapon, that maybe they would have been able to deter the assailant? Do you see any legitimacy to that?
I'm not an expert on this issue at all. I don't claim to be, but I do think some of these massacres have occurred with pretty serious high-power weapons, and I'm not sure how a teacher running out to his car for a shotgun would have, prevented some of these.
This is a swing district, David, getting reelected in 2013 by, I think, if memory serves me, less than 1,000. So it's pretty close. And Simonds, a school board member in Newport News, making this challenge. Okay, Shelly, let's talk about Medicaid expansion. I know you're in favor of it. It's not going to pass. What's the alternative?
Well, I think we have to look at wasteful spending in our system as it exists today and make sure that we're really getting a bang for our buck in terms of our medical spending. And that was part of the Affordable Care Act. So I guess at a state level, we can start implementing some of those on our own. Some other states are looking at the cost of pharmaceuticals right now and forcing big drug companies to justify their pricing structures. So, that's something we could do at the state level. I'm really disappointed that we haven't been able to expand Medicaid because I think in life you have to be proactive, not reactive. And if we had been proactive, we could have started a small business health exchange for our small business people. We could have made it work for real working people out there. But by just saying no, 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 I think we've closed the doors to a lot of opportunities for our citizens to get health care.
Well, Shelly, it's been a financial calamity for the states of Ohio and Kentucky that went with it, because whatever they estimated the state cost would be, they're up 5, 6, 7, 8x over what they thought it would be. So we can have that argument all day. At the end of the day, whether you win or lose, there's going to be, the Republicans are going to have a supermajority in the House, and so you're not going to get Medicaid expansion. So here's my question. If you're in the House, is there something you could work with Republicans on across the aisle that would be an aid to hospitals in Virginia in rural areas that are losing money? They're not able to survive. They're cutting services. They're shutting down, costing jobs, business opportunities, and anything else. Is there an alternative?
Well, that's a great question. And when I get up to the General Assembly, I promise the voters that this is going to be my number one concern, is really understanding the hospital situation. I have had some meetings with executives at Riverside and Sentara so far. Now, I know that some of the hospitals have proposed a fee that they would charge themselves, essentially, to generate some revenue for indigent care. I don't know where that proposal is yet. I think another thing we could really do to reduce costs in our medical system is make sure that our prisons aren't the mental health institutions today. We need to make sure that we have services for the mentally ill so that they don't end up crowding our prisons.
Hey, Shelly, we're out of time. I'm going to close on that because you're spot on with that. We've turned our prison system into mental hospitals. This is not only in Virginia, but it's around the U.S.